Here is the final, fully polished version of your story. I have corrected the grammatical structures, enhanced the natural flow of standard American English, and completely integrated the cultural, legal, and logical fixes, the realistic corporate penalties, the legal eviction details, the realistic emotional breakdown, the timeline logic, and the finalization of the divorce. The length, structure, and dramatic tone remain entirely faithful to your original draft. Listen, Sophia, from now on, each of us takes care of our own parents. That's how we're going to do it. I've already made up my mind. The bomb my husband, Jason, dropped from the other end of the dinner table froze the air in the room in an instant. As I set down my silverware, Jason looked at me with the smug expression of a brilliant businessman who had just closed a complicated deal. However, at that moment, this man puffing out his chest in front of me knew absolutely nothing. He had no idea who was actually paying from the shadows to fund the luxurious lifestyle his mother loved to flaunt, and he certainly didn't guess that his selfish decree would, in a matter of days, turn into a noose that would mercilessly tighten around his own neck. Each of us takes care of our own parents, I repeated quietly, slowly placing my knife and fork back in their proper places. Jason scoffed dismissively, popping a piece of the prime Wagyu beef, which I had bought myself into his mouth. Yeah, exactly what I said. Your mother recently hurt her back out at her country house, right? He threw out with disdain. I hope you don't have some naive idea of helping her with money from the family budget. I have zero intention of spending what I earn on your broke relatives. His cruel words echoed through the quiet dining room. Last month, my mother had indeed slightly strained her back while gardening. I had mentioned it to Jason in passing, not giving it much thought, but in his paranoia, he decided I was going to try to pin the responsibility of helping my family on him. He decided to act preemptively to nip it in the bud. My mother, he continued smugly, is a delightful woman who lives alone and is absolutely independent. Yours, with her meager social security checks, who knows when she'll come running to us crying and begging for money. From now on, everyone handles their own. That goes for both money and time. Complete personal responsibility, understand? Jason raised his wine glass, looking at me with absolute condescension. I don't know how you plan to care for your mother on the pennies you make as a freelancer, but you'd better not touch a single cent of my money. I have my own expenses and my own obligations to my mother. What a barrage of insults. In a normal situation, this would be the moment to stand up and throw my wine in his face. But instead of answering, I just gave him a silent, icy stare. This man truly understood nothing. A deep silence hung in the air. Jason, interpreting my silence as proof that I was too hurt to object, chuckled in satisfaction and went back to cutting his steak. He called me a penny ante freelancer, and that was true, but only as a smokescreen. At Jason's insistence, I had left a full-time position at a major corporation and was now working from home as a medical translator. I told him I was just helping out a friend's firm and making maybe $1,000 a month. Jason, with his fragile male ego, hated the very thought that his wife might earn more than him. And then there was his delightful and independent mother, Patricia. Her life consisted of almost daily trips to high-end restaurants, buying luxury cosmetics at Bergdorf Goodman, and 2 lavish vacations to Aspen or Europe every year. Jason was firmly convinced that his mother managed this, thanks to the inheritance left by his late father and her pension, never doubting it for a second. But the reality was completely different. On the day we got engaged, my future mother-in-law laughed loudly, declaring, "You see, we come from a highly educated, respected family. We didn't expect you to come from money, but I do expect my daughter-in-law to dedicate herself body and soul to taking care of me." Shortly after the wedding, she demanded I give her a credit card. "Just for unforeseen expenses so I don't bother Jason," she told me. Not wanting to cause problems with my husband, I ordered an authorized user card linked to the account where my translation fees were deposited. That was the beginning of hell. Patricia's spending grew month by month, and an astronomical amount was now being charged to my account monthly, an amount significantly exceeding Jason's own take-home pay. For the last 5 years, I had worked day and night like a dog to secretly fund my mother-in-law's lavish lifestyle. And all this while my own mother didn't need a single dime of help. My family, the Sterlings, had owned vast tracts of land for generations. Through the leasing revenue of her commercial real estate alone, my mother possessed a net worth far exceeding what Jason would earn in his entire lifetime. "All right," I said quietly. Jason looked at me in surprise. "I'll do as you say. From now on, everyone will take care of their own parents. We won't interfere in each other's family affairs, and we won't give them money. Agreed? For a moment, Jason seemed thrown off by my submissive reaction. But then a crooked smirk played on his lips, and he nodded. Yeah, agreed. It'll be better for both of us. Everything is perfectly clear, isn't it? He said, satisfied. But keep in mind, don't come crying to me later. I promise you. I won't cry, and I won't regret it. I clenched my fists under the table, smiling coldly. Pleased that his proposal was accepted, Jason triumphantly began flipping through the TV channels. He didn't suspect a thing. He didn't know that a few minutes prior, I had used the banking app on my phone to freeze the credit card I had given his mother. I wondered how flushed with shame Patricia's face would be the next day when she tried to pay for her purchases in the VIP fitting room of her favorite luxury department store, only to face a declined card in front of a sales associate. And when she found out why her card was blocked? Who would she call first, screaming her head off? The countdown to my counterstrike had just begun. Saturday morning arrived, the day after Jason's selfish, everyone takes care of their own parents' declaration. For him, it was probably a memorable morning. He finally felt he had gotten rid of the leech he believed his wife's family to be. He freshened up in the bathroom, whistling a tune. He said he needed to go into the office for a few hours and quickly left the house. I'll grab lunch downtown. Make me that prime rib I like for dinner, with my money, obviously. The front door slammed indifferently. From the living room window, I watched him get into his recently purchased premium luxury sedan. Naturally, the auto loan payments were automatically deducted from my account. I took a sip of my already cold coffee and sat down at the open laptop on the dining table. On the screen was the text of a foreign medical journal article I had been rushing to translate. After graduating from college, I worked for a specialized translation agency before going freelance. Highly specialized medical and legal translations pay extremely well. Because I worked almost without sleep, I was earning several times more than a man my age in an elite corporate role. But Jason knew nothing about this. Or rather, he never wanted to know. Jason worked as a mid-level manager at a mid-sized commercial real estate development firm with a decent reputation in the city. The man makes the money outside, and the woman takes care of the hearth, he had declared with absolute certainty when we got married. He was the kind of man who despised women with better education or higher incomes, considering them insufficiently feminine. He embodied the most outdated patriarchal values. Therefore, I hid the scale of my work, deceiving him by saying I did minor data entry tasks for a friend's company just for pocket money. By day, I played the role of the perfect housewife. And by night, when Jason slept or on weekends when he was out, I killed myself at the computer. I had to go to such extremes to hide my income while continuing to work for one reason: to provide for the exorbitant spending of my mother-in-law, Patricia. I picked up my smartphone and opened the credit card statement I was supposed to pay this month. Luxury boutique on Fifth Avenue. $1,200. Glow Aesthetics Spa. $2,500. Signature Chef's Tasting Menu. $800. A breathtaking list of expenses. The total amount this month was staggering. Patricia was supposed to be living on a modest inheritance left by her husband and her Social Security. However, unable to let go of her status as the mother of a brilliant son working for a first-class company, she competed in luxury with her friends. And all these bills ultimately landed on the authorized card I had given her. Listen, Sophia. Jason is very tired at his job. And with his salary, no matter how hard he tries, I can't even maintain my basic standard of living. It is your duty as a wife to compensate for my expenses with what you secretly earn on your side gig. And do it discreetly, so as not to wound my son's pride. I clearly remembered the words she threw in my face 6 months after the wedding. To protect my beloved husband's reputation and build a peaceful family without conflicts, I agreed to this absurd demand and kept paying her bills, working myself to the bone, sacrificing my own health. Meanwhile, my mother had absolutely no financial problems. Moreover, she was a humble, warm person who sent me fresh vegetables from her garden every season and a little money, saying, "Sophie, this is for you to treat yourself, so Jason doesn't know." When she told me about her back problem, I said, "Don't worry, Mom, I'll hire someone to help you." But she laughed and replied, "Nonsense. My savings are more than enough. You focus on taking care of your family. That's the most important thing." And this mother, my mother Jason, had insulted, calling her a broke retiree, a beggar, and declared he would cut her off from any help, all without knowing that his own mother was blowing thousands of dollars a month of the money earned by his daughter-in-law. From now on, everyone takes care of their own parents, both in money and time. Complete personal responsibility. I slowly rolled Jason's words from the night before around in my mind. What wonderful music! He had set the new rules in the house himself, so all I had to do was follow them to the letter. I switched the screen on my phone and confirmed the message in the banking app once more. Card lock complete. The clock showed 10 a.m. opening time for that prestigious department store my mother-in-law frequented so often. Yesterday, Patricia had sent me an intentionally spiteful text. Tomorrow, I'm meeting my friends to look at the new designer bags in the VIP room with a stylist. Then we'll have lunch at that expensive sushi place. The ticking of the second hand seemed especially loud in the morning silence. Jason bragged, "My money is my money." But the reality was that his salary barely covered the mortgage, the car loan, and his own whims. His savings didn't even reach 4 figures. What would happen when Patricia begged, "Son, you need to transfer $5,000 to my card right now"? A smile formed on my lips. And at that exact moment, my smartphone lying on the table erupted in a piercing ring. The screen flashed the name Patricia. The rings came one after another. 1, 2, 3, 4. I could almost see her bloodshot eyes through the screen and hear her shrill screams. The gates of hell had finally opened. I took a sip of iced tea and slowly pressed the answer button. "Hello, this is Sophia. Let's see what interesting screams you've prepared for me." The first act of my counterstrike had just begun. As soon as I answered in a calm voice, a piercing screech capable of tearing the phone's speaker hit my eardrums. "Sophia, can I ask what the hell you've done? They told me the card isn't working." Patricia's voice was manic with anger and panic. I pulled the phone slightly away from my ear, took a sip of my coffee, and answered in an intentionally innocent tone. "Patricia, what happened? Why are you yelling so much? Don't play dumb." I was in the VIP fitting room, trying to pay for a new bag, and the salesgirl, with a mocking smirk, told me, "I'm sorry, but this card cannot be used at this time." And my friends Anne and Mary were standing right next to me. "You made a laughingstock out of me. How are you going to fix this?" I could perfectly picture the scene. Patricia, sprawling on a designer sofa with an air of superiority, handing over the card, and her face twisting with shame when the employee confronted her with harsh reality. "Patricia, please calm down. I locked that card yesterday." I delivered the news with absolute tranquility. I heard my mother-in-law choke on air on the other end of the line. "Locked it? Are you out of your mind? How dare you do such a thing without permission?" It wasn't without permission. It was Jason's order. Yesterday, he decided to revise our house rules and clearly stated that from now on, everyone takes care of their own parents. Complete personal responsibility, both in money and in time. My words rendered Patricia speechless for a few seconds. However, her twisted mind quickly found a convenient interpretation. "Don't be an idiot. He said that about your family, so that your mother, that broke woman with the bad back, wouldn't dare leech off my Jason's salary. The help I receive is my rightful dividend for raising such a brilliant son and making him into a top executive." Her words were so egocentric they sounded comical. "Besides," she continued, "a penny ante freelancer like you has no right to manage the family finances, let alone block a card. That is Jason's money. Wire $5,000 to my personal account right now, or zell it to me immediately. That is compensation for the public humiliation you caused me and ruining my entire afternoon." I closed my eyes for a moment and maintained a deep silence. Patricia's screams echoed vainly in the room. "Do you hear me? Move it!" This woman was truly blind. She didn't realize that the money she spent was earned by me, breaking my back over translations, and that her son had absolutely no financial capacity to allocate a $5,000 monthly allowance for her. "I refuse," I said slowly, but with a voice cold as ice. "I don't have a single cent for you. After all, I'm just a penny ante freelancer, aren't I?" asked Jason. "The new rule states that everyone takes care of their own parents. Now, if you'll excuse me." "Wait, Sophia, don't you dare." I unceremoniously ended the call and muted the phone. But this wasn't the end. Patricia, with her wounded pride, wasn't going to give up so easily. I was sure she would escalate to physical action. My prediction came true less than half an hour later. The sharp squeal of taxi brakes sounded in front of the house. Then, someone started pounding on the front door with such force it seemed they were going to break it down. "Sophia, open up! I know you're in there!" I took a deep breath and opened the door. Patricia burst into the house like a hurricane, her face red with fury and a demonic expression. "How dare you humiliate me like that? Embezzling Jason's money and denying me what is rightfully mine. It's the same as stealing." She flew into the living room without even taking off her shoes. "If the card is locked, give me your checkbook or log into your banking app right now. I'll transfer the money myself. Patricia, please don't barge into my house like this. I cannot give you access to the accounts." When I calmly blocked her path, Patricia swept her frantic gaze around the living room. Her eyes locked onto my work laptop on the dining table and the stack of documents next to it. Freelancer. Sitting at home all day playing on the computer? You're neglecting your duties as a wife for this nonsense. To my horror, Patricia reached for the folder containing important printouts of the medical article I had been translating all night. "Don't touch that," I yelled. The moment I shouted, a sinister smile appeared on Patricia's face. She pulled the papers out of the folder and then did the unthinkable. "Don't touch it," I yelled again. Patricia grabbed the manuscripts with both hands. "Because of these stupid papers, you think you have the right to live off Jason's salary and earn your pennies?" Re-eep. The dry sound echoed through the living room. Dozens of pages covered in complex medical terminology were ruthlessly torn by Patricia's hands and scattered across the floor. "What are you doing? That is very important work. Don't make me laugh. A side gig about nothing, and you call it work. Stop messing with my head." Patricia began stomping on the torn papers with her high heels. Black ink smeared across the white paper under the soles of her shoes, while her insults shifted to my family. "Besides, you inherited this greed from your mother, that beggar. Jason told me everything." She played the victim with her back just to try and take a bite out of my brilliant son's salary. "How low? My mother has never," I started. "Shut up! The fact that some freeloading senior is trying to latch onto our family's status is incredible arrogance. And you're just like her. You should focus on your direct duty as a wife, which is to manage Jason's money and give it to me, even if you have to go scrub toilets to do it." Patricia's insults bounced off the walls. "I'm surprised your mother is even still alive in that rundown country shack of hers. No wonder Jason is afraid of being bled dry. I bet you married my son for our money. I hate poverty." I shifted my gaze from the trampled manuscripts under her heels to her anger-twisted face. A volcanic rage was ready to erupt from my chest. I wanted to slap this woman and scream right in her face that the thousands she blew every month without a second thought were earned by me. I wanted to rub her nose in the fact that the net worth of my broke family was tens of times greater than everything Jason would earn in his entire life. But I gritted my teeth and stayed silent. If I gave in to my emotions and told her the truth right now, she would panic for a moment. But that would be it. Neither Jason nor Patricia would accept reality. If they found out the truth, they would gang up on me, screaming, "If you had money, you should have said so from the beginning," and would try even harder to get at my inheritance. So for now, I would endure. Let them walk on their own 2 feet into the perfect hell I had prepared for them. Patricia, interpreting my silence as the convenient posture of a pathetic, defenseless daughter-in-law, snorted victoriously. "Well, looks like you finally understand your place. Listen to me carefully. By tonight, I want $5,000 transferred to my account. That is compensation for the public humiliation you caused me and ruining my entire afternoon." She straightened her cardigan and looked at me with contempt. "If you don't get it, I'll tell Jason to throw you out of this house. My son will do whatever I ask. Tomorrow I'll pack up your junk and send it back to the shack you crawled out of." Saying that, she marched noisily toward the exit and forcefully slammed the door. After the storm, silence reigned in the living room. I sat on the floor and picked up the torn pages one by one. The data was saved on the computer, so I could reprint it. But the time and effort I had put into those papers, and the insult to my family she had trampled upon, that couldn't be erased by a simple reprint. $5,000 by tonight, huh? I threw the scraps into the trash can and picked up my phone. I checked the balance of the account used for household expenses, the very money Jason considered his. The additional funds I deposited there every month to cover Patricia's expenses were no longer there. All that remained were the pitiful leftovers of Jason's salary and his laughable savings. Withdrawing $5,000 from that account was physically impossible. The clock showed 3 p.m. It was probably the exact time Patricia was calling Jason, telling him through tears that I had embezzled her son's money and painting me as the villain. At that moment, the phone on the table vibrated. Jason's name appeared on the screen. I took a deep breath, smiled coldly, and pressed answer. Yes, Jason? Can I ask what the hell you're doing? Jason's voice on the speakerphone was so deafening it felt like my eardrums would burst. I placed the phone on the table and calmly turned on the voice recording app while keeping him on speaker. What am I doing? From now on, everyone takes care of their own parents. Complete personal responsibility, both in money and in time. Those are your words. No, don't you dare play word games with me. This is no time for bullshit, Jason screamed, breathing heavily. He was likely in an office hallway or somewhere he could yell without caring who heard him. Mom just called me in tears. She says you embezzled my money, transferred it to your account, blocked her card, and made a laughingstock out of her. So this is what you've been doing behind my back while I wasn't home? Stealing. Everything was going exactly according to my script. Patricia hadn't mentioned a word about the card being blocked due to her exorbitant spending. Instead, she had cooked up a magnificent victim story in which the daughter-in-law embezzles the son's money to cut the mother-in-law off from financial help and fed it to Jason. Jason, so you believe your mother over me? Of course. My mother is a woman who sacrificed everything to raise me alone and make sure I got into a top-tier company. My mother would never lie. I sighed soundlessly. In his mind, he was an elite executive. His mother a humble but admirable widow. And I, a pathetic freelancer, living off them. His fantasy was so ironclad that he didn't even bother to check the actual balance of his account or look into the real financial situation of our family. Hey, don't stay silent. Answer me. Where's my money? I bet you wired it to your broke family. Jason spewed more insults at my relatives. I bet you decided to pocket my salary under the pretext that your mother hurt her back. It makes me sick to even think that my money went to that old woman living in her country shack. Jason, stop insulting my mother. She hasn't touched a single cent of your money. When I quietly warned him, Jason apparently took it as the defensive reaction of someone caught red-handed. He went even harder. Bullshit. Then why was Mom's card blocked? Listen to me carefully. Mom is demanding $5,000 as compensation. I want you to have that money ready by the time I get home. Ask your relatives, go scrub toilets at a gas station, I don't care. $5,000. The amount that was originally intended to cover Patricia's expenses this month and compensate for her wounded pride. Now Jason was trying to shake it out of me, as if it were money I had stolen from his family. I stared at the recording timer, silently counting the seconds, and said nothing. If I told him at that moment, that $5,000 is for beauty clinics and a designer bag for your mother, Jason, in his fully brainwashed state, would only furiously reply, my mother would never do that. Don't lie. It was useless to talk to him without presenting irrefutable physical evidence simultaneously with the harshest reality. Jason interpreted my silence as despair over my inability to get the money. Hey, did your mother already spend it all or what? Don't piss me off. If you don't get the $5,000 by tonight, I'm filing for divorce. Finally, Jason said the magic word, and it won't be an amicable divorce. I will hire a lawyer and drag your theft into the light, and not just yours. I'll sue your broke mother as an accomplice and shake every last cent out of her for damages. So get ready. A man capable of threatening so cruelly and disowning his own wife and her mother. The true face of this man, whom I had tried to consider my beloved husband for 10 years, was the face of an arrogant, ignorant tyrant. Divorce? Are you serious? Absolutely serious. A thief like you is a stain on my perfect life. Have the money by tomorrow morning, or I will personally call your family and demand restitution. Click. The call was unceremoniously cut off. The room plunged into silence. Patricia's threat. Throw me out of the house if I don't get $5,000. My husband's ultimatum. Destroy my family if I don't get $5,000. An ordinary woman facing such insane pressure from her husband and mother-in-law would probably collapse on the floor, weeping in despair. But I pressed the stop button on my smartphone's recorder and slowly finished my cold coffee. Tomorrow morning, then. I glanced at the torn manuscripts in the trash can and opened my laptop screen. Right on schedule, I sent a short email to a specific person. I expect you tomorrow at 10 a.m. at my house. Everything is ready. I looked out the living room window. The sky was overcast. A cold autumn wind was picking up. Jason and Patricia were absolutely certain they had backed me into a corner. But they knew nothing. They knew neither the true power I concealed nor the true nature of my family, the Sterlings. Tomorrow morning, instead of the $5,000 they lusted after, what exactly would I present to them? The stage for my perfect revenge was being set silently but inexorably. At 9:50 the next morning, Jason and Patricia lounged on the living room sofa with their arms crossed, like judges ready to pass sentence on a criminal. Jason's face reflected a sick sense of superiority, the feeling of a man who believes he can bend his wife to his whim. Patricia, in turn, eagerly awaited the moment when her insolent daughter-in-law would fall to her knees to hand her the $5,000. "Well, Sophia, time's up. Did you get my money? The $5,000?" Jason asked, drumming his fingers on the table. I sat with a straight back in the armchair across from them and calmly shook my head. No, I didn't get a single cent. Or, more accurately, I didn't need to get it. My calm and serene voice made Jason's eyebrows shoot up. What? You didn't get it? Do you think I'm a fool? You steal my money and you still dare to talk back? Exactly. Your family is so broke they can't even scrape together pennies. You useless parasites, Patricia shrieked. Insults poured from their mouths aimed at me and my mother once again. I stared intently into their faces, and answering nothing, maintained a deep silence. Don't just sit there. Say something, Jason yelled. Fine, whatever. Like I promised, we're getting a divorce. Right now, I'm calling your relatives and demanding compensation. Jason pulled out his smartphone and started jabbing furiously at the screen. At that exact moment, ding-dong precisely at 10 a.m., the doorbell rang through the quiet house. Who the hell is that at this hour? Jason muttered. I'll get it. I stood up and walked to the hallway. Opening the door, I saw a respectable, older gentleman, impeccably dressed in a three-piece suit that easily cost several $1,000s. I've been expecting you. Please, come into the living room. With your permission, Miss Sterling. As I led the gentleman into the living room, Jason and Patricia sized him up with a suspicious glare from head to toe. And who are you supposed to be? If you're an insurance agent, you can get lost. I'm a little busy throwing her out of the house right now, Jason threw out arrogantly. The gentleman bowed politely and placed his business card on the table. I apologize, I haven't introduced myself. My name is Arthur Sinclair. I am an attorney and legal counsel for the Sterling family, meaning Sophia's family. A lawyer? The overconfidence vanished from Jason's face in an instant. Why is a lawyer here? Did you spend the pathetic pennies you had to hire him to negotiate damages? It's useless. We have proof of your embezzlement. While Jason yelled, trying to project strength, Attorney Sinclair, unflinching, took several documents from his thick briefcase and laid them out on the table. Jason, regarding this alleged embezzlement you speak of, I ask you to examine these copies of bank statements. It was the ledger of income and expenses for the account where Jason's salary was deposited, and my personal account. Jason's monthly net income is approximately $8,000. If we subtract the mortgage, auto loan, utilities, and his personal expenses, there is a deficit of about $1,000 every month. And right here, he continued, we have the monthly expenses for the credit card used by Patricia, averaging around $5,000 a month. Paying for this out of Jason's salary is physically impossible. Then who was paying for it? Attorney Sinclair pointed to the statement from my personal account. All payments were made from Sophia's account. For the last 5 years, the person funding Patricia's expenses was not you, Jason, but Sophia herself, using money she personally earned. A dead silence hung in the living room. Patricia's face grew visibly pale. Lies! But she's just a penny ante freelancer. She physically can't earn that much. Jason, don't let them fool you. Patricia yelled in desperation. Attorney Sinclair countered with an icy smile. A penny ante freelancer? Don't make me laugh. Sophia is one of the top medical translators in the country. She holds direct contracts with leading international medical institutions. In terms of annual income, she earns roughly 3 times more than you do, Jason. 3 times? Jason's eyes widened, and his mouth opened and closed soundlessly like a fish out of water. The woman he despised as a parasite with a beggar's salary actually earned far more than him and completely subsidized his and his mother's lives. This crushing truth shattered his petty pride into a million pieces. That's impossible. She didn't tell me anything. This is fraud. Fraud? And this is coming from you? A man who didn't even bother to check the balance of his own account and dumped the financial burden of his mother onto his wife? The lawyer's sharp retort made Jason shrink back into his shoulders and fall silent. I looked at the two of them, frozen like stone statues on the sofa, and said calmly, "Jason, wasn't this your decision? From now on, everyone takes care of their own parents. Don't touch a single cent of my money." So, I simply stopped spending my money on your mother. It's perfectly simple. Jason grabbed his head with shaking hands. The phrase he had uttered himself had turned into the perfect boomerang, embedding itself deeply into his neck. Wait a minute, what about my card? And my lifestyle from now on? Patricia, her face contorted, tried to walk toward me, but Attorney Sinclair coldly stopped her. Patricia, Jason, now is not the time to worry about your lifestyle. In fact, there is another reason I came here today. The lawyer pulled another thick document from his briefcase. It bore an imposing seal. This is an urgent notification of utmost importance from Sophia's mother, Catherine Sterling, the very person you insulted by calling an old woman from a country shack and a broke retiree. The moment Jason saw the words printed on the cover of the document the lawyer placed on the table, he let out a strangled cry, as if he had seen a ghost, and slid off the sofa onto the floor. What? What is this? Sterling Development Group? Why is the name of the primary landowner of the mega development project my company has staked its entire future on right here? Jason's face turned an ashen gray, and large beads of sweat broke out on his forehead. The mid-sized commercial real estate firm Jason worked for was betting everything on a massive urban renewal and development project. And the owner of 70% of that land was none other than my family, the Sterlings. You didn't know, Jason? Sophia's mother, Catherine Sterling, is the CEO and president of Sterling Development. The Sterling family has owned these lands for generations and holds the absolute right to dispose of the parcels for this project. She is the very person you called an old woman from a country shack. Attorney Sinclair's icy voice rang through the living room. It can't be. Her house was just an old farmhouse. That old farmhouse is a historic estate recognized as a landmark of national significance. Its historical value is such that the annual maintenance alone exceeds your lifetime earnings. Trembling from head to toe, Jason looked at me with pleading eyes. Sophie, why didn't you tell me something so important? I hid nothing, I answered in an icy tone. When we got engaged, my mom humbly said, "We're an ordinary family, we have a little land." You took that literally, deciding we were broke hicks. And after that, every time I tried to talk about my family, you shut me down. While Jason plunged into the abyss of despair, Patricia, absolutely failing to grasp the gravity of the situation, let out a shrill and entirely inappropriate screech. Wait a minute, so what if there's some provincial landowners? My Jason is a future vice president at a top-tier city firm. We should be the ones rejecting the land from these hicks. I didn't respond to Patricia's insult. I maintained a dead silence. In this situation, the cruelest thing wasn't my words, but the crushing weight of reality. Shut up, Mom! Shut your mouth! Jason screamed at his mother with a fury I had never seen in him before. If we don't get this contract, the company goes bankrupt, and I'll be thrown out on the street as the scapegoat. On the street? What nonsense are you spouting? Hearing these unbelievable words from her beloved son, Patricia finally turned pale. I'm not spouting nonsense. Attorney Sinclair took another paper from his briefcase. This is an official notice from Catherine Sterling. It is impossible to establish a relationship of trust with a company that employs an individual who unjustly treats my beloved daughter and insults our family. Consequently, all land sale agreements related to this project are hereby terminated. Terminated? Jason clutched his head and sprawled out on the floor. Please, wait. This was my fault. Sophie, tell your mom. It was just a petty family argument. I didn't know it was her land. And if you didn't know, does that mean you have the right to call someone else's mother an old hag, insult her, and extort money from her with threats? My cold stare forced him to silence. My male pride. Your pride consisted of letting your mother live in luxury on my money while you strutted around like a peacock. Well, Jason, you said it yourself. From now on, complete personal responsibility. The very phrase I've been repeating over and over since yesterday has now become the blade of the guillotine destroying your social standing. Furthermore, Jason, Attorney Sinclair delivered the final, merciless blow, the audio recording where you threaten Sophia with the words, "If you don't get $5,000 by tomorrow morning, I will call your family and demand restitution," has already been forwarded through the Sterling Group directly to the CEO of your company. When your CEO received Mrs. Sterling's call late last night, he immediately convened an emergency board meeting via Zoom. That is the power of the Sterling family. The CEO? Yes. The CEO was furious. "How dare our employee blackmail the daughter of the Sterling Group president?" he said. "An emergency HR investigation has concluded, and you are officially terminated for cause as of this morning." The circle was finally closed. Jason's domestic abuse, fueled by his ignorance and arrogance, had escalated into a corporate and social catastrophe. Jason let out a groan that hardly sounded human, writhing on the living room floor. "Wait a minute. What does all this mean? What about my credit card payment next month? And my trip to the spa next week? Who is going to pay for all that?" Patricia, still obsessing over her whims, asked a ridiculous question that only highlighted how doomed they both were. Jason was on all fours on the floor, howling like a wounded animal. His pride as an elite manager, his authority as the head of the household, it had all vanished. "Jason." "Hey, Jason, what happened? What did your boss say?" Patricia's clueless voice tried to rouse her son. Jason slowly raised his head. In his eyes, there was no longer a trace of the arrogance with which he used to look at me. There was only dark despair and deep hatred toward his mother. Amid the monotonous ringing of a phone somewhere, a heavy, suffocating silence hung in the room. "Hey, Jason, what's wrong with you? What's with that look?" Patricia shook her son's shoulder. "If there are some problems at the company because of Sophia, I'll call this CEO of yours myself. I'll tell him, I apologize that my daughter-in-law is so worthless. Come on, get up." That absolutely tone-deaf phrase snapped the last thread of sanity left in Jason. "Don't touch me!" he roared like a beast, roughly shoving his mother's hand away. Patricia shrieked and stumbled back. "This is all because of you!" "Because of you. Because every damn month you blew thousands on your beauty salons and designer bags, we ended up here." "What are you saying, son?" "I was just trying." "Shut up! I just got fired in disgrace. Because of your spending, I pissed off Sophie's family and cost the company tens of millions." With bloodshot eyes, Jason screamed, spitting as he yelled at Patricia, the woman who, just yesterday, he worshipped as the most respected mother in the world. "I was terminated for cause. Do you know what that means? I forfeit all my unvested stock options and my annual bonus. That's over $250,000 down the drain. Not to mention the massive auto loan and your damn credit card debts. How the hell am I going to pay all of that when I don't even have 10 grand saved up? Everything went to your cravings. Pay it yourself, you cursed witch." "Witch?" Patricia, trembling and pale from the unthinkable insult from her adored son, stuttered. How dare you speak to your mother that way? I did this for you. Don't make me laugh. Didn't we decide that everyone takes care of their own parents? Well, I'm not taking care of you anymore. Starve to death for all I care. I don't give a damn." A shameful, disgusting family squabble. Just yesterday, they supported each other, singing praises. "My mother is amazing. Jason is the perfect son." They united to humiliate me, their common enemy. But as soon as the heat was turned up, they didn't hesitate to betray each other. Sitting on the sofa, I watched this scene with an icy gaze. I didn't need to say anything. They were destroying themselves, poisoned by their own stupidity. "Sophie!" Suddenly, Jason's knees buckled. He collapsed onto the floor, burying his face in his hands, openly sobbing. "It was me. It's all my fault. I was just stressed and said terrible things. Please, forgive me." "No, please just withdraw the complaint to the CEO, otherwise my life really is over." He reached out, desperately trying to grab my hand. Seeing this, Patricia screeched hysterically. "Jason, where is your male pride? Why are you degrading yourself in front of her?" "Sophia, don't get a big head. Forgive Jason immediately." Patricia, still believing herself to be of higher standing, continued throwing insults. I looked down at Jason, weeping on the floor like a pathetic child, and quietly said, "Jason, you said it yourself. From now on, complete personal responsibility. If your life is over, it's not because of me. It's the result of your own decision. Mr. Sinclair, please proceed with the rest." When I shifted my gaze to Attorney Sinclair, he calmly gathered his documents. "Jason, you might think you are entitled to this house, but you are mistaken. This property is owned by an LLC managed by the Sterling Family Trust. You were simply permitted to live here as Sophia's guest, with all mortgage and maintenance payments funded entirely by her personal account. As of today, the trust has served a formal 30-day notice to vacate. However, Sophia is canceling all premium services, the high-speed internet, premium cable, and landscaping, effective immediately. And since you won't be able to afford the basic utilities, groceries, or the inevitable legal fees to fight this, I suggest you pack your bags and leave voluntarily by tomorrow before the mounting liabilities crush you completely." Leave by tomorrow? This realization paralyzed both of them. "Wait, I have nowhere to go. I can't even find movers by then," Jason yelled. "Me neither. I have a tea party with my friends next week. I can't be out on the street." "That is not our problem," Attorney Sinclair replied coldly. "Thank you, Mr. Sinclair." I stood up and picked up my laptop. I'm heading back to my mother's estate. I have no desire to spend another night in a house tainted by your presence. Enjoy your last 24 hours here. "Wait, Sophie, don't leave me, don't go." I pushed away the hand Jason tried to extend toward me. "Jason, when my mom hurt her back, you said she shouldn't come crying to us. So who is the one crying now?" Jason froze with an expression of purest despair. "Goodbye, and don't bother breaking anything before you get kicked out tomorrow," I added with a cold smile. "Sterling Development plans to demolish this entire lot next month anyway. Never show me your filthy faces again." Accompanied by Attorney Sinclair, I left the house that had been my prison for 10 years. Behind my back, Jason's screams and Patricia's sobs merged into a hellish choir. At noon the next day, in a suburban neighborhood swept by a cold autumn wind, Jason and Patricia stood lost on the sidewalk, looking back at the house they could no longer afford to live in for even one more day. Having realized they couldn't even pay the upcoming power bill or the lawyer fees to fight the eviction, they had fled voluntarily. The only things they had left were duffel bags with clothes for a couple of days, packed in a hurry, and a little cash. "It can't be. We really got thrown out." "The neighbors are looking at us," Patricia muttered in a trembling voice, pulling up the collar of her coat to hide. The neighborhood where just yesterday she had strutted with her head held high, feeling like a socialite, now felt like a hostile monster laughing at her. They quickly headed toward the train station. Sitting in the corner of a cheap diner, each with a phone in hand, they tried to find a way out. They blindly believed they had plenty of influential friends ready to help. "I'll call the girls," Patricia said. "The ladies I drink tea with at the country club. Surely they'll lend me money for a hotel." She frantically dialed a number. "Hello, Anne? It's Patricia. You see, I have a little problem with my daughter-in-law. And, yes, we already know that your son was fired in disgrace, didn't we?" Her friend's voice was colder than ice. "Listen, my husband's company is a contractor for your former firm. The whole industry is talking about the idiot who insulted the Sterling heiress and ruined a multi-billion-dollar project. But it's a misunderstanding. We're friends. Don't make me laugh." The caustic chuckle on the other end cut to the bone. "We only tolerated you because you always paid for the expensive lunches. And now it turns out it was all on your daughter-in-law's dime. How pathetic. I can't stand people with no class. Don't call here again." Click. Patricia dropped her phone, pale as a corpse. Her elite friendship was fake, based entirely on the money I earned. Without it, she was nothing more than a beggar. At the table across from her, Jason slammed his fist on the tabletop. He was also calling his colleagues. "Listen, Paul. Remember when I helped you with that project? Sorry, Jay, I'm up to my neck right now. Plus, if I'm seen associating with a guy who got fired for cause with a massive scandal, I could get the boot myself. Please don't call me again." The call abruptly ended. His supposed charisma and popularity rested entirely on the prestige of his company and the financial safety net I secretly provided him. At that moment, a news report played on the TV hanging in the diner. Following the cancellation of the controversial zoning project, Sterling Development Group today announced the formation of a new alliance with construction sector leader, Apex Builders. On the screen, my mother, Catherine Sterling, answered reporters' questions with a calm smile. The anchor added, "This new project is expected to generate hundreds of millions of dollars in economic impact." They, who had tried to trample a penniless retiree, realized that their opponent was in a completely untouchable league, and that they themselves had thrown away a guaranteed life of luxury with their own hands. I'm a complete idiot. Tears of regret burst from Jason's eyes. 6 months after the scandal where Jason and Patricia were arrested by federal agents for identity theft and wire fraud, after desperately trying to open multiple high-limit credit cards and personal loans using my Social Security, Number Life finally settled into a peaceful and serene rhythm. My divorce was finalized quickly and entirely in my favor, freeing me completely from his financial ruin. Jason had been sentenced to federal prison. The felony identity theft, combined with the massive financial liabilities he owed, sealed his fate. Patricia, as a willing accomplice, also received a prison sentence. When they eventually get out, all that will be waiting for them is crushing debt and the stigma of ex-cons. Everything they built on lies and posturing, they destroyed with their own hands. I was sitting on the veranda of our historic estate, working on my laptop, when my mom brought me a cup of tea. "Sophie, sweetie, take a break." The spring sun was shining, and the aroma of tea mixed with the scent of flowers from the garden. My mother, fully recovered from her back injury, was enjoying her days. My work as a medical translator was recognized more than ever, and my translations were being published in prestigious international journals. "Mom," I said, looking at the colorful koi in the pond. "You know, that day when Jason said everyone should take care of their own parents, I didn't feel despair. I felt a strange clarity. I realized that to him, I wasn't a life partner but a tool." My mother hugged me gently. "You endured a lot, daughter, but kindness should be given to those who deserve it. Your love is for those who truly appreciate you." Tears welled up in my eyes. My mother, whom they had humiliated, had waited patiently until I made the decision myself. "Thanks, Mom. From now on, I'm going to live for myself and to make lots of happy memories with you." "Of course," she smiled. "How about we go to the Rockies next month? You've been wanting to work on your translations with a mountain view." I smiled, wiping away my tears. The spring sunlight flooding the veranda seemed to bless our future. Everyone takes care of their own parents. That phrase no longer sounded cold. I realized it wasn't about isolation or abandonment, but about mutual respect between independent adults who support each other with genuine love. That is the true meaning of family. Emerging from the dark 10-year tunnel, I had finally found myself. The chains of the past had vanished. Before me stretched only a clear, endless blue sky that I had fought for myself. The beginning of a new life.